Answering machine detection, AI's role in calls, why answering machine detection matters again. Cold calling didn't die, it got harder. When roughly 80% of cold calls land in voicemail and about 87% of people avoid unknown numbers, your SDRs can do everything right and still spend most of the day listening to greetings instead of talking to buyers. That shift changes the economics of outbound. The scarce resource isn't dials, it's live conversations. If your program treats machine answered as just another outcome to manually disposition, you're paying rep time for busy work and quietly inflating cost per meeting. AI-powered answering machine detection is how modern outbound teams reclaim that time. It classifies human versus voicemail in the first moments of a call, then routes the call to an SDR or an automation path so your team stays focused on conversations that can actually turn into pipeline. The outbound math, connect rates, dials, and wasted motion. In well-run B2B cold calling, healthy connection rates typically fall in the 8 to 15% range. Even there, the average rep still needs about 18 dials to reach one buyer, and only around 2% of cold calls convert into a meeting. So every leaked voicemail and every misrouted call matters. This is where a cold calling agency or sales development agency can outperform a basic in-house setup, not because they dial more, but because they waste less. The compounding effect of shaving seconds off thousands of machine-answered events is huge, especially when you're running multi-touch cadences across phone, email, and LinkedIn outreach services. AMD sits at the center of that efficiency. When it's configured correctly, it becomes a routing layer that keeps reps in live talk time and pushes machines into a controlled workflow: voicemail drop, SMS, email, and a CRM disposition, without forcing an SDR to babysit the process. From rule-based AMD to AI, what actually changed? Legacy answering machine detection relied on brittle rules like greeting length, pauses, or a beep. In real-world conditions, different carriers, background noise, short greetings, and voicemail systems that sound human, that approach can collapse into coin flip performance, with some industry commentary pegging older generations at roughly 40% accuracy. Those misses create two expensive failures. False negatives push voicemails to reps, wasting time, while false positives drop real humans, wasting leads. Worse, false positives can create silent or abandoned call experiences that feel like robocalls and increase complaint risk. Exactly what compliance teams want to avoid under frameworks like TCPA in the US and abandoned call limits in other markets. AI AMD improves classification by learning patterns from massive datasets instead of fixed thresholds. Industry analysis points to accuracy rising to around 98% with AI, while reducing false positives and false negatives by at least 50% compared with older tech, meaning fewer dead air moments and fewer missed opportunities. How AI answering machine detection works and what to benchmark. Modern AMD listens to the first seconds of audio, extracts voice and silence features, and runs a model that returns a probability of human versus machine. Your dialer then applies a threshold and routes the outcome, either to an SDR instantly or into an automated voicemail, SMS, and email path, so the system, not the rep, does the sorting. Benchmark expectations are now meaningfully higher than they were a few years ago. Leading vendors like Voiso and Convoso report detecting about 95 to 97% of machine-answered calls, and academic work using neural approaches shows 96% plus accuracy, rising above 98% when combined with silence detection logic. The key is to treat these benchmarks as directionally useful, not guaranteed. Accuracy depends on your carriers, regions, call routing, and how aggressively you set thresholds. So, good AMD is a system you tune, not a feature you turn on once. If you don't control what happens when a machine answers, you're paying your highest cost people to do your lowest value work. Implementation Playbook. Get AMD working in a real SDR program. Start with a baseline audit, not a vendor demo. Pull the last 30 to 60 days of dialer data and separate outcomes into dials, machines, live connects, and meetings. Once you see your true machine rate, you can tell whether you have a list timing problem or an AMD misclassification problem. Next, build a lightweight QA routine so you're not guessing. Each week, randomly sample 25 to 50 calls labeled machine and 25 to 50 labeled human per campaign. Then tally false positives and false negatives. That single habit prevents the most common failure mode, AMD slowly drifting into silent calls or leaked voicemails while your dashboard still looks busy. Finally, make the output operational. Machine detected should automatically write a disposition to your CRM, move the prospect to the next step in your sales engagement cadence, and trigger the right follow-up, voicemail drop, SMS, or email, so reps don't double dial the same number and prospects don't fall into limbo. Best practices. Tune for conversations, not just speed. AMD is a control knob with business trade-offs. In most B2B context, we recommend biasing settings slightly toward humans, meaning you accept a few extra machine leaks because dropping real buyers is costlier than letting the occasional voicemail reach an SDR. That one decision often reduces dead air complaints and improves your brand experience. Design your voicemail handling like a product, not an afterthought. When 80% of calls go to voicemail, the voicemail drop and the follow-up email or SMS is a first-class touch in the sequence. Your cold calling services should treat machine answered as a structured micro-journey with consistent messaging and timing, not a hang-up and hope. And when AMD increases live connects, don't assume meetings will automatically rise. Your team's talk tracks, objection handling, and qualification have to keep up with the new volume, or you'll simply produce longer conversations with the same 2% meeting rate. Coach to outcomes like meetings per rep hour and qualified opportunities created, not calls per hour. Common mistakes that quietly break AMD and how to fix them. The most frequent mistake is treating AMD as set and forget. Teams flip it on, never review call recordings, and slowly accumulate a mix of dropped humans, leaked voicemails, and inconsistent automation. The fix is simple. Schedule weekly QA and treat threshold adjustments like you treat A/B test in a cold email agency program. Measured, iterative, and campaign-specific. The second mistake is measuring only dials and meetings while ignoring the machine versus human split. If you don't know whether your connect rate problem is caused by list building services, bad call timing, or AMD misclassification, you'll change scripts and cadences without touching the real bottleneck. Break your reporting into machines, live connects, and meetings so you can see where your funnel is actually leaking. The third mistake is running aggressive settings that create silent or abandoned calls. Those moments don't just hurt conversion, they create complaint risk and can trigger scrutiny depending on the jurisdiction and dialing method. If you're running an outsourced sales team or any outbound sales agency motion, insist on conservative initial thresholds, documented QA, and clear rules for how quickly an agent must be connected when a human answers. Next level optimization, segmentation, workflows, and scale. Once AMD is stable, segment your configuration the same way you segment your messaging. Different regions, industries, and carrier environments can produce different greeting patterns and latency, so one global setting often underperforms. Create campaign-specific AMD profiles and hold each to its own QA scorecard so you can scale without losing accuracy. Treat machine outcomes as triggers, not dead ends. A detected machine should launch the next best action in your cadence: voicemail drop, email, SMS, or a task for a later call window, so your system is always progressing accounts forward. This is where a modern B2B sales agency approach wins. The dialer, CRM, and engagement platform behave like one machine. If you're deciding whether to build or buy, be realistic about the operating cost of excellence. Great AMD results come from ongoing QA, carrier troubleshooting, coaching, and analytics, not just software. At SalesHive, we run AI-enhanced dialing inside our sales outsourcing programs, so clients get the benefit of tuned workflows, an experienced SDR agency team, and reporting that ties AMD outcomes directly to meetings and pipeline.